If you want a good laugh, go online and see if you can figure out the difference between broth, stock, and bone broth. It'll make your head spin. What you'll find is a lot of experts all very confidently telling you completely different things, and some will even say that they're all the same thing, while others will tell you that there is no such thing as bone broth anyway. It's complete chaos out there. Now, not being one to shy away from having an opinion, I am going to confidently tell you my own very useful definitions and how to make the good stuff. But just to keep one thing in mind, mine are just one person's opinions. This is not something to ever get into any kind of argument over because, frankly, nobody agrees and everybody thinks that theirs is the right definition. But my advice is that none of them is worth taking stock in. See what I did there? Anyway, now, having listened to literally more than 20 different experts' opinions, I did notice a few points that a lot of people generally did agree on, though there were a few who said the exact opposite, of course. But the general majority opinion was that broths tend to be made from more meat and less bone, while stock tends to be more bone-centric with less meat. Broths tend to have a shorter cooking time while stocks cook longer, and a bone broth has the longest cooking time of all. In fact, a lot of people say that a bone broth is nothing more than a stock with a longer cook time, and I think that's arguably true. Because of that, it's fairly well accepted that the word bone broth is actually kind of a misnomer because it's not technically a broth, but rather just a very deep stock. Broths tend to be lighter and thinner, while stocks and bone broths tend to be darker and thicker. Tend to be. But most folks say that they are all fairly different. Broths tend to be lighter and thinner, while stocks and bone broths tend to be darker and thicker. Most folks will agree that they are all fairly different, but can be used interchangeably to make soups and stews and sauces or what have you. Now, some people say that a broth is only meat and no bones, while a stock is only bones and no meat. Some people say that a broth is made from raw parts, while a stock is made from cooked parts. Some people say that a stock doesn't contain any veggies or seasoning. Some people say that... So many people say so many things. The fact is, you can do it so many different ways. You can cook the ingredients or use them raw. You can add seasonings or skip them. You can add a mirepoix or just skip that too. You can clarify the final product or leave it rustic. You can use poultry, red meat, seafood, or just vegetables. In a way, you can do pretty much whatever you like and call it pretty much whatever you want, and nobody can really rightly tell you that you are objectively and definitively wrong. Now, as for me, I usually make mine out of chicken because that is the healthiest, the most versatile, the easiest, and the most economical. So that's what we're going to do today. If you're so inspired, you can play around with all these variations. The only one that I personally can't get behind is a broth made from just meat and no bones. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you waste all that good food and flavor? If you're going to do that, you should at least keep the bones and use them later. If I ever catch you throwing away a carcass, we are not friends, and you are kicked out of the Eat As Love tribe forever. And of course, the other outcome of listening to all these experts is that my feed is now lousy with recommendations on the subject. Oh, the price we pay. But since I did all that poking around for you, you can let this be your definitive, straightforward guide. Nothing could be more fast, easy, healthy, cheap. This is the only video you will ever need, and it is all right here. Now, as it turns out, what I make is very much a bone broth by most definitions. And the truth is that if we wanted to be really careful with our speech, we might rightly call it a bone stock. But I'm just not that precious. Now, as for people who say that bone broth doesn't really exist, I would ask them why my freezer is so full. Now, is bone broth sometimes used as a sneaky marketing term that people use to justify tripling the price of something that should rightly be dirt cheap? Absolutely. And some of the junk out there that is sold as bone broth is overpriced, watered down, adulterated, fabricated, misrepresented, and misleadingly labeled. But it does exist. It's very real. And the good stuff is one of the healthiest, most versatile, economic, delicious, and nutritious things you can put in your body. I generally make it one of two ways, and that's what I'm going to show you today. Later in the video, I will show you a third way, which is my favorite way, as a matter of fact, because it is totally just next level. But you'll have to stay tuned for that. Still, so worth it. But as for today and as for right now, we will be looking at my two basic recipes. And honestly, the only difference is that one is made from a raw chicken carcass after breaking it down, and the other is made from a cooked chicken after all the meat has been either eaten up or put up. The raw version has only water, chicken, and sometimes a little tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. The cooked version has the same thing plus whatever I happen to have stuffed the bird with before I cooked it. And that's usually just onion and garlic and sometimes some apple along with a few herbs like oregano, marjoram, and a sprig of thyme. Now the apple can result in a little sweeter broth, so I sometimes try to pull some of it out or just leave it out completely. In today's video, I'm going to make a batch of each so you can see how it goes, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same thing. Now, I promised to give you my own definitions, and that time has come, flawed as they are. And remember, if you listen to 20 experts, you'll get 30 different definitions. And once you understand the basics, you can call it whatever you want. And I promise someone will disagree with you. I might disagree with you. You might disagree with yourself. Just don't get attached. Okay, so when I use a raw carcass, I call it broth. When I use the leftovers from a cooked bird, I call it stock. The reason is that broths tend to be a lighter color while stocks are usually a little darker. And there are some experts who would agree with those definitions 100%, while some others would say it's exactly the other way around. Now the truth is, like I said, both of these would be best described as a bone stock, but there's really no consensus out there, and this is my channel, so I get to do what I want. If you make your own, you have my express permission to call it whatever you want. I won't even fight you for it. Just make the stuff whichever way works for you and enjoy the good health and versatility. Maybe someday the culinary community will have to come to some kind of agreement on the topic and I'll have to take this video down in shame. Ha! Just try it. No, seriously, really, try it. Try this recipe. You'll never go back. Now, before you go to step one, you will need a chicken carcass. And if you don't know how to get that, then you'll need to watch my video on how to break down whole chicken or my video on how to roast a chicken. I'll post links in the description and I'll also put up links at the end of this video. For those of you watching on a computer, you can click the links that are popping up right about now-ish. But if you're on a phone or a TV, you can't even see those anyway, so you'll just have to wait for the end of the video. But now I'm telling you how to watch YouTube, and that's definitely not the point of this channel. Well, except that I do need to tell you to like and subscribe and share and do all that. And if you really want to help the channel, you can comment too. And I really super appreciate all of those things. Now, if you're really impatient and you just want to cook this right now, I suppose you could use a whole chicken, but I've never done that, so I can't speak to the results. If you do try it, just make sure to remove the giblet bag first because you don't want all that plastic in your soup. Yuck. But you do want to grab the neck and add it to your broth. You can identify the neck because it looks exactly like a neck. Oh, and speaking of soup, that is yet another variation. Soup is just stock or broth with stuff in it. Enough said. All right, that's enough yammering. Let's get started. I put the carcass in the carafe or the crock or whatever you call it. I add water to the fill line, sometimes a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and I set it on high pressure for 2 hours. If I'm doing a larger batch, I use the good old-fashioned pressure cooker and I set it to the lowest temperature that produces a steady stream of steam for 2 hours. But the big drawback with that is that it's kind of loud and the house smells like chicken soup for the rest of the day. If that doesn't bother you, I do have to point out that the good old-fashioned pressure cooker actually makes a slightly superior product. The higher pressure extracts more of the goodness and flavor from the bones, and you just get more of everything from everything. Now, speaking of getting more of everything, that's the reason for the splash of vinegar. A lot of people claim that a splash of vinegar helps extract all the nutrients from the bones, and it actually makes them more bioavailable. My experience has been that it also brightens up the flavor a little, and I don't always want that, so sometimes I use it and sometimes I don't. If you just want a lighter and quicker product, albeit much less nutritious, but perfectly tasty, you can cook this for just 45 minutes. If you decide to call that a straight-up broth or a light stock, fine. I just don't think it qualifies as a bone broth. Now, if you don't have a pressure cooker of any kind, you can do this in a slow cooker or on a stovetop set on low. Most recipes say 2 hours for a broth or a stock and 6 to 12 hours for a bone broth. Some recipes actually recommend up to 24 hours, or long enough for the bones to kind of disintegrate to the touch, but that might actually be too long, and some people actually say it's unhealthy, so I strongly recommend you just get an Instant Pot or a pressure cooker and let her rip for 2 hours. I have a hard time imagining life without one, and it really will pay for itself. Just 3 batches of bone broth will more than pay for it, and you'll be putting something much more healthy in your body than the stuff from the store, which can be of a disturbingly mysterious pedigree. I've been doing it this way for years, and I have no regrets. And while we're waiting for that to cook, I can again summarize what I learned. Broth is meat and or bones and or veggies and or seasoning, while stock is meat and or bones and or veggies and or seasoning. Got it? Bone broth is either one of those with a longer cook time. Otherwise, it's just a stock or a broth. Still yummy, still useful, not bony, not magic. If you truly want the magic of bone broth, then put this on high pressure for 2 hours. And there are so many variations and opinions, and it's just not worth getting twisted up over. You can cook the chicken first or use it raw. You can leave the meat on or take it off. You can add mirepoix or leave it out. You can pressure cook it for 2 hours or just 45 minutes, or you can simmer it on the stove or a slow cooker for hours and hours. But just remember, there is absolutely no point in arguing with people about what this is, because really nobody quite agrees on it. I would say, however, that the longer cook time is what makes it a true bone broth, because that's how you get all the good stuff out of the bones. Now, some of you are nodding your head and saying, yes, the collagen. And while that's technically correct, a lot of food gurus don't tell you the whole truth about it. If you want, there are techniques you can use to end up with a final product that is very high or even mostly collagen, which is that wiggly, jiggly, jello-like stuff that some people really lose their minds over. And don't get me wrong, it really is good stuff. But your body just doesn't use it the way some people claim. Yeah, prepare to have that myth kind of busted. You see, when you put all that collagen in your belly, it's not like your body just grabs it as is and plasters it onto your joints. Everything you eat gets broken down to its constituent parts, and then your body makes the things it needs. Our old friend collagen is mostly made up of 3 amino acids. And part of the reason that bone broth is so great is that it is loaded with those exact amino acids that your body needs to make fresh, new collagen. The fancy way of saying that is that the bone broth contains all of the precursors to collagen. So by eating collagen, you are guaranteed to have all the right precursors, and that's great. Now, some research suggests that if you're going to eat an animal protein, that is the balance you want to aim for, so that's why we're focusing on that today. But it's worth knowing that you can apply these same techniques to any kind of bone. And one of these days, I'll show you my pho recipe, which I make from beef bones. Not fast, not easy, and not necessarily cheap, but wow, it's good. And yes, another source of collagen that your body can break down and use to make fresh, new collagen. Just don't make the mistake of thinking that your body just grabs that collagen and pastes it onto your bum knee. If only it were that simple. The truth is, there's a lot to know about protein and amino acids, so if you want to dive a little deeper, I'd love for you to watch my video on the subject, so I'll post a link to that one too. And speaking of health, I personally am not bothered by the fattiness of this broth, especially when it's made from pastured animals. But if you want to reduce the fat, that's easy. Just chill the broth and then scrape the fat that rises to the top. Easy peasy. Now, I promised you that I was going to reveal the secret to taking this to the next level, and I suppose now is as good a time as any. If you want something really super duper uber truly special, then you can make this using the carcass of a smoked chicken. If you've never had a smoked chicken, then I strongly suggest that you try it. All you need is a smoker or an egg cooker, which is what I use. Oh, and a chicken. Yeah, of course, a chicken. Other than that, it's exactly the same as the recipe I'm showing you today. Now, if you have an egg cooker but you don't know how to make a smoked chicken, then all you have to do is tune into our next episode where I'll show you the fast, easy, healthy, cheap method of making a smoked chicken in an egg cooker. And then as a bonus, I'll also show you how you can make a pan gravy too. That part might not qualify as fast or easy, so we'll just call it a bonus because it really is delicious. Now, whether you make a broth, a stock, a bone broth, or a smoked bone broth, or whatever you decide to call it, all of them have a jillion and one uses. You can use them to cook quinoa, rice, beans, chickpeas, lentils, or any other kind of grain or legume. I like to use them to simmer and blanch greens. Sometimes I just heat up a cup or a bowl and then add the crumbs from the bottom of a bag of tortilla chips plus a spoonful or two of salsa, and it's like instant caldo de pollo. Even simpler than that is just a nice mug of broth, and especially on a chilly day. My wife says that her refried beans aren't even worth making without the smoked stock, and I kind of agree with her. It's amazing. Broth, in general, is the embodiment of fast, easy, healthy, cheap. And smoked broth, next level, really, next level. But I digress. Let's get back to the kitchen here. Now, when it's done cooking, it's insanely hot. You're a little tired from cooking and you don't feel like waiting for it to cool down. And frankly, if you're going to store it in plastic containers, it's probably a bad idea to put scalding hot liquid in the plastic because yuck. So this is what I do. I'm going to use this little mixing bowl. I'm pretty sure this is 1 quart size, and I'm going to be very careful to keep the bottom clean. You'll see why in a moment. I'm going to take a tongs to remove all the bones and other solid bits from here and put them in the bowl. The reason I'm doing this is that all these bones and solid bits are holding a lot of heat. And as I remove them, then I'm removing a lot of the heat. Now, when this is full and you're done doing this, you can put this in your curbside compost. If your city doesn't have curbside compost, then send them an email and tell them to get their act together. If you have your own compost pile, I don't recommend putting animal parts in that compost pile because that can attract pathogens and vermin, and you don't want those things in your compost. So just get all the bones and skin and cartilage out of here that you can. That didn't have as many bones as I'm used to because I didn't have any drumsticks or thighs or wings in there. But I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the compost outdoors. And thanks to the magic of video magic, the next time you see this, it won't have any chicken parts in it. And now I have filled this metal mixing bowl with ice water, and I'm going to put it in the crock or the carafe or whatever you want to call it. And as you can see, this is why we wanted to keep the bottom of the bowl clean. We also want to be really careful to not spill any of the ice water into the broth because that'll literally water it down. We'll let it sit there until all the ice is melted. And after all the ice is melted, this should be cool enough to the touch that you wouldn't feel weird about putting it into a plastic container, because that's what I'm going to do today because I'm out of glass containers. So pull this out. It is going to drip, so be ready for the drips because it's chicken broth. You don't want that on anything clean. I've got my towel here ready. If you feel like it still needs to be cooler, then just get another batch of ice water and do it as many times as you need. And now we're ready to put this into storage containers. I'm going to take the carafe or the crock or whatever you call it out of the holder thing. Is that what you call it? The holder thing, yeah. And there, it's out of the holder thing. Always use a ladle and a strainer. And I like to use a variety of different sizes, all the way from the quart size down to the teeny tinies. And sometimes I even like to use an ice cube tray for little single servings, but just whatever you like. And there you have it, all put away. Once it's all portioned out, just pop it in the freezer and pull it out as needed. You're going to come up with so many uses for this, and I would love to see those ideas here in the comments. And that's it. I estimate the broth we just made is worth about 3 times the price of the chicken it came from, and it's going to make everything you cook healthier and deliciouser. And the most deliciouser of all is the one made from smoked chicken, so stay tuned for the next episode where I'll show you how to make that smoked chicken, because that actually is my favorite way to cook a chicken. Like I said, I do it in my egg cooker, so you will need some kind of device that can be used to smoke a chicken. And if you don't have such an apparatus, then a smoked chicken may not be in your immediate future, but I do recommend getting one if you can. Some of the less famous brands like this Acorn are a lot less expensive than the big famous brands, but they work great. But regardless of whether you make a broth or a stock from a smoked chicken, a roast chicken, or a raw chicken, it really is the veritable emblem of fast, easy, healthy, cheap. And one batch is worth roughly 3 times the cost of the chicken it was made from, and it might just transform your entire food life. If you watch my channel and do just one thing, make it be this one. But for now, it is time to wrap up this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Ciao.